Okay, we're looking today at our 12th memory verse, Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. This is especially exciting verses in one sense, in that both my grandfather and my father chose this as their life verse. And so we can see that it has a lot of emphasis. And we look at the first phrase, wherefore, seeing we also are compassed with so great a cloud of witnesses. And so the emphasis here would be the great get this here. The great cloud of witnesses. Some people think of that as people watch in heaven, looking down and watching, but actually, it's probably carries the idea of that which is coming from chapter 11, which is, we call it the faith chapter, and it goes through all of those great witnesses. But what they're witnessing to is the faith that they had in God and how God was faithful to them, right? And so they're witnessing the results of the walk with God, and we're compassed about with all of them. And it's interesting because the term witness is used 4 times with the idea of a good report. Same Greek word, same Greek root word that we see here in Hebrews 12, used 4 times in Hebrews 11. In 11:2, it's the elders obtained a good report. 11:4, Abel obtained a witness. 11:5, he, talking about Enoch, had this testimony that he pleased God. And then 11:39, which is the next to the last verse of chapter 11, says, these all, speaking about that cloud that compasses about us, these all having obtained a good report through faith. And so it's their life of faith that is setting us an example. It's telling us from the Old Testament the way that we should walk in obedience and live a life of faith. And how is that? We look at the way we divide this. One, let us lay aside every weight and lay aside, secondly, the sin that doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. And so there are 3 things that we need to do in our Christian life. We need to lay aside every weight. And this idea might involve sin. But more than that, it's anything in this life that causes us not to walk in faith, not to walk with God. And so it's the weight of this life that we need to lay aside, the fears, the anxiety, anything that would draw us away from God. And then he says, and even the sin that so easily besets us. And so it's every weight and every sin, right? So we're going to lay apart that which is neutral, every weight, and that which is wrong against God. And then, positively, we are to run with patience. Okay? Don't expect our Christian life to have arrived, but we're running a race. It's like a marathon. It needs to continue on. And so we're running with patience, resting in our faith in God, who will allow us to finish strongly, right? So let us run the race with patience, the one that is set before us. And I like this idea, set before us. God is in control. Okay, it's not something that's haphazard. that which is set before us. But God has a particular race for each of us, a particular life to be lived for each of us. And we are to run that, we are to live out that life in patience. And so we lay aside every weight, we lay aside the sin, we run with patience, and then fourthly, we look to Jesus, who is what? The author, the finisher. He endured, he despised, and he sits at the right hand of the throne of God. And so we're going to look to Jesus, right? Looking to him, because he is the one that his faith, right, in obedience to the Father through the incarnation, his perfect life, then his death, burial, and resurrection, all of it in obedience to the Father showed his faith, his obedience, and not only that, he is the author, okay, the initiator, the one who makes it possible for us to have faith, and the finisher. He's completed it by his person and his work. And so we can rest in him, okay, his person and his work. He is the initiator. He's the one that completed it. He had perfect faith, and he makes it possible for you and I to have that faith. And how did he do that? By enduring the cross. He endured, right, the cross. He was willing to die and take your sins and my sins upon him because of the joy that was set before him. He knew what the end results would be, and it was bringing joy into his life. And he despising the shame. What it means there is the shame had no consequence, right? He knew there would be great shame in what he had to go through. The death on the cross and being despised and spit upon and mocked. He knew that shame, but he despised it. It had no influence on what he did. And I like the way John Piper says this. It says, it means Jesus spoke to shame like this. Listen to me, shame. Do you see that joy in front of me? Compared to that, you are less than nothing. You are not worth comparing to that. I despise you. You think you have power? Compared to the joy before me, you have none. Joy, joy, joy. That is my power, not you, shame. You are worthless. You are powerless. And so the shame could not stop Jesus Christ from coming in the incarnation, living and being willing to die, because he was controlled by the Father, the will of the Father, and the joy that was set before him. And then he is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. To sit means it's completed, it's done. Nothing else needs to be done. Christ has done it all. He is now sitting at the right hand of the throne of God. And you and I, we can rejoice in that truth.